everyone, and welcome back to Explore with NTV. I'm Nadira and I'm here with Tusby, and I hope that you're all really well and that you're going to be enjoying the show. So Tusby, what is the topic about today?
Well, hello friends. Like Nadira said, the topic is about authors, and we're going to be talking about famous writers.
Yeah, so before we get into that, I'd just like to say hi Flora.
Hi Nadira, hi Tusby, hi friends.
How are you, Flora?
I'm really well. How about you, Nadira?
I'm good, thank you for asking. So Flora, what's one of your favorite books?
My favorite books is 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, is that because it's about dogs?
Of course it is. Why would it be anyway?
Oh, so Flora, when do you like to read? Do you like reading a lot?
Yeah, I like to read a lot because I have lots of free time.
Do you have any questions, Tusby?
Yes, Flora. Now, who is your favorite author? My favorite author is Dodie.
Oh, Dodie Smith.
Yeah, Dodie Smith.
She was the one that actually wrote 101 Dalmatians, right?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, there's so many stories about dogs, isn't there?
Yeah, I wonder because the authors like dogs.
Yeah,
that's why they
probably.
write it.
A lot of children's books also include dogs as some of the characters.
Yeah,
hmm
maybe because dogs are a very nice animal.
Yeah, like I can think of Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians, all of those books about dogs. So Tusby, now that we've asked Flora what's her favorite book, what's yours?
My favorite book is The 12th Night.
And
What's yours, Nadira?
I would say my favorite book is probably called The Pinhole Egg.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's your favorite author?
Oh, so my favorite author is also the person who wrote that book, and her name is Diana Winnie Jones. She wrote lots of famous books. Do you know any of them?
No, what are they?
I think I remember. One of them is Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh,
Do you remember?
I watched the movie.
Yeah, I loved watching the movie. I actually was so happy when I found out that one of my favorite books from my childhood was actually becoming a film. So that was really nice.
Nadira, do you want to talk about anything else about your favorite book?
So,
what happens in it?
oh, so in The Pinhole Egg, it's about a lot of witches, about magic and things like that, and I really love fantasy, so that's why I really enjoy the book.
So do I. I read a lot of fantasy books.
Really?
In my spare time.
Yeah, same.
That's one of my hobbies.
Oh, do you like any other genres in books?
I like superheroes.
Yeah, I really like superheroes. So, what about how often do you read?
I read, of course, in my spare time, maybe once in a day.
Oh, okay.
Or 3 times a week. Yeah. What about you, Nadira?
Actually, it's been a bit more difficult for me to read in my spare time because my degree.
এখন প্রচারিত হবে মাগরিবের আজান।
আল্লাহু আকবার আল্লাহু আকবার আল্লাহু আকবার আল্লাহু আকবার أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Because my degree also includes a lot of reading. So I have to read books all the time, and often that means that I get quite tired from reading books. So hopefully, like during the holidays, for instance, like the Christmas holidays, I did enjoy reading some fiction books, which were really nice.
Yeah, maybe some people like to read books because they're not used to reading books. Maybe because they don't read books all the time.
Yeah, I really enjoy reading books. That's not to say that I do really love them, despite the fact
So
that
do I.
sometimes a lot of people don't have spare time for them, though.
Sometimes
But,
when I write, I read some books so I can get some ideas.
Yeah. So I think a really good reason for reading a book is because of the fact that obviously it's almost like a form of escapism, right? Remember when we were talking about films? We said that people enjoy reading books or
It's
films.
entertainment.
It's entertainment, and it also is like a distraction from your everyday life. It's like,
Yeah.
especially fiction, I feel like, because you can get so...
Yeah, stories,
Yeah.
like interesting imagination.
And then the character can really, you can get so involved with the characters.
Yeah, you might even draw some pictures and write stories about them,
Yeah.
like I do.
Yeah, that's actually called fan fiction. You know, a lot of people, after hearing about their favorite stories and reading them, they then create their own versions using those characters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's actually, if you look on the internet, there's so many different types of fan fictions. Like for Harry Potter, for instance, so many people love writing fan fiction about that.
Wow.
Lots of famous books for that.
Yeah, I really like to write because it's really interesting, and so you can read your own writing and it really feels amusing.
Yeah, I remember I actually used to love writing like short stories. So yeah, I did enjoy that as well.
Short stories, yeah, like parts of stories or from other books, you can write. You can get like a page and maybe and make your own version of it.
Yeah.
Of your of maybe your favorite book or your favorite writer's book.
Yeah, so you might get inspired by some of your favorite authors and writers and then write your own version of their stories, for instance.
Yeah. And that's sometimes authors do it.
Yeah.
Every writer needs, every writer at least reads a few books every week or every day.
Yeah, and they get so much inspiration from other books that they've read that they really enjoyed. So definitely, if you want to write a story, then you should probably read a few other books about that genre and get some ideas.
Yeah, and then maybe your book will be known and very popular. And then maybe people will know you, like Shakespeare. Shakespeare
Yeah.
is very well known.
Yeah, Shakespeare is really well known. Do you know anything else about Shakespeare?
Well, Shakespeare. Well, I have been to Shakespeare's house.
Really?
Yeah, and Shakespeare's house is also, you can get books from there that he wrote.
Wow, okay. I've never been there.
Yeah, and Shakespeare's house is in England, and I visited it once.
Oh, okay. I remember once I visited the Globe Theatre with my dad when I was younger. I think when I was about 13, 14 maybe. And I watched The Twelfth Night actually at the Globe Theatre.
Oh, that's one of my favorite books, like I mentioned.
Yeah, so do you know much about the Globe Theatre?
No, I don't know much about it, but I know that there's lots of theatres and some movies that were actually books first.
Yeah. So with the Globe Theatre specifically, before Shakespeare actually made that Globe Theatre to hold all of his plays, and actually the Globe Theatre is designed, it's a circle building actually. Have you ever seen it in a picture?
No, what? Can you explain it a bit more?
So you have people in the middle, so it's kind of like a hollow circle, and the poorer people at the time would stand up and watch the plays, whilst all the richer people would sit down, and they would have balconies on above their seats.
Yeah, I have seen some theatres like that.
Yeah.
And some famous people, they'd sit there.
Yeah, so if you're very wealthy or famous, then you'd sit on the higher seats, and if you weren't, or if you're a bit more poor.
Sometimes they have sticks with glasses on them that they look at.
Yeah, actually, the Globe Theatre, that structural design is still like that. And you know, so if you ever want to visit, you can either stand in the middle or around the theatre.
Yeah. It's very fun to watch plays.
Yeah, I really like watching plays.
Yeah, and it's also fun to do plays and write them. Yeah, because plays, they're also amusing and entertaining.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe plays are like that because you can either act in them, and you might have to do a lot of hard work remembering lines, but it's really fun to do a play.
Yeah, I think so as well. I remember the reason why I actually went to the Globe Theatre is because I used to do like these acting classes after school, and so I really did enjoy acting and, you know, reading stories and then acting them out. So that was really fun.
Whoa! Did you get to? How many stories did you read?
I read quite a few stories. A lot of the play that I actually performed was a political play, so I had to read lots of stories about different politicians and things like that. So yeah, it was interesting. It was very informative. So I think you can learn a lot by just watching a play
or doing it.
Yeah, because actually a lot of plays and stories, they always have like a context to them, right? So the writer obviously has an intention with these stories. Do you know any other famous authors other than Shakespeare?
Well, like the one that that Flora mentioned.
Yeah, so Dodie Smith, she's a very famous children's writer. There's other famous children's writers as well, like Charles Dickens. Have you ever read the book? What was it called? I think it was. I can't remember. It was about Christmas.
Well, I watched movies. Maybe they turned into movies.
Yeah, it was turned into a film. I remember. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But
was Christmas in it?
Yeah, it was about Christmas. I forgot the name. It's okay. But there's so many books, so many people. It's hard to remember everything, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't even. Sometimes you even forget the stories all about them.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's also important to reiterate and like retell these stories as well.
Yeah, and like I said, make your own version so
Mm.
you can remember them,
Yeah.
or do what you can to remember them,
Mhm.
and maybe you can write your own stories and show them to everyone, maybe in your class or like that, like show and tell.
Mhm.
Show and tell is something where you can show things, and you can even read out your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what else stories you can make. Do you have any other stories in mind?
Well, I think we need to focus not just on stories but also poems. They're another way people.
Poems are really nice, like rhyming poems or crossword poems.
Yeah. So there's so many different types of poems as well. There's like there's so many different types of poets that do lots of different. They base it on like love and in that sense you would have a sonnet. Do you know what a sonnet is?
Well, what is it?
It's a poem that has 14 lines and each line has 14 characters. So that's that's the structure of a poem, for instance.
Does it have to be 14?
Yeah, it has to be 14 or else it's not considered a sonnet.
Oh wow. Does 14 is like because they call it a sonnet? You know 14, maybe because sometimes numbers are like the titles?
Yeah, not necessarily. I feel like sonnets and just other structured poems, it's just a random rule. I don't know who invented it actually.
Oh.
Maybe the audience can research about who invented the concept of sonnets or the structure of sonnets.
Yeah. Poem. There's lots of different kinds of poems, like you said. Like sometimes they have the same words in it, but in a different one, like adverbs or verbs.
Yeah, so you can learn a lot about
Like tumbled or tumbling.
yeah, so you can see a lot of the structure and learn more words and things like that.
Sometimes writers or poem writers focus on just the topic or one thing, like a fantasy, making it a fantasy.
And actually Shakespeare did that as well. I think he wrote 154 sonnets.
Wow.
So that was a lot of writing, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder how long it took.
Yeah, probably took him his whole life to write that many sonnets, you know?
Wow. He'd have to start, maybe he'd have to start when he was a baby.
But I think he also wrote 37 plays. So do you know, you said that you love the 12th Night?
Yeah.
That's one of 37 plays that he
like
wrote.
Macbeth.
Yeah, or Macbeth, yeah.
Some are true stories, some are just fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah.
That's something that Shakespeare wrote.
Yeah, so a lot of the themes that Shakespeare wrote about was things like love, like in the 12th Night, things like guilt and power, like in Macbeth, right?
Yeah. It's very sad. Some of the stories are sad.
Yeah,
happy.
tragedies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Now we're going to go for our break, friends.
Yeah.
So see you after the break. Bye. Hello, friends. We're back after the break.
So Tasbi, since this is the segment where we like reading books, which book would you like to read?
I'd like to read this book.
Okay, what's it called?
It's called Sugar Plum and the Unicorn.
Oh.
Alright, so. The unicorn has a silver horn. Her eyes are bright and blue. And when she hears a unicorn's wish, she can make that wish come true. Sugar Plum was a rocking horse. He belonged to a girl and a boy. To and fro, they rode on their favorite toy. Here in the children's bedroom is where I want to be. Happily rocking to and fro, this is the life for me. But when the children were out at school, Sugar Plum hung his head. Oh, to be out in the big wide world, I wish I could trot, he said. Down came a voice, and there stood a beast with a twisty silver horn. I can grant wishes, said the snow-white unicorn. She pawed the ground and tossed her mane and flashed her eyes of blue. 7 times she turned around and the horse's wish came true. Now Sugar Plum was a farmer's horse, pulling his cart and load. Clippity-clop, he trotted along the road. Here in the open countryside is where I like to be. Clippity-clop, this is the life for me. But time went by and the hills grew hard. Sugar Plum hung his head. Oh, to be free of this heavy load, I wish I could gallop, he said. Down came the voice of the unicorn and flashed her eyes of blue. 7 times she turned around and the horse's wish came true. Now Sugar Plum was a racing horse with a jockey on his back. Gallop-a-jump, they thundered down the track. Here on this famous race course is where I like to be. Gallop-a-jump, this is the life for me. But time went by and the jumps grew hard. Sugar Plum hung his head. Oh, to slow down and have some fun. I wish I could dance, he said. Down came the voice of the unicorn and she flashed her eyes of blue. 7 times she turned around and the horse's wish came true. Now Sugar Plum was a circus horse with his tail tied in a bow, dancing and prancing around the ring, the star of every show. Here in this splendid circus is where I like to be. Dancing and prancing and dancing, this is the life for me. But time went by and the children's cheers made Sugar Plum hang his head. Oh, for a child to ride me, I want to go home, he said. Down came the voice of the unicorn and she flashed her eyes of blue. 7 times she turned around and the horse's wish came true. Sugar Plum was a rocking horse, but where were the girl and boy? Time had flown and they had both grown up and forgotten their favorite toy. Alone in the attic, Sugar Plum sighed. I wish I had never been born. But I have a better wish for you, came the voice of the unicorn. She pawed the ground and tossed her mane and flashed her eyes of blue. 7 times she turned around and the unicorn's wish came true. Now Sugar Plum is a fairy-ground horse on a beautiful merry-go-round. Merrily up he rises, merrily down the ground. Here in this fabulous fairy ground is where I love to be. Merrily, merrily, round and round, this is the life for me. So, Sugar Plum is a happy horse. The children are happy too. And the unicorn with the silver horn closed her eyes of blue. The end.
That was a really nice story, Taspi.
Yeah, and there was lots of rhyming in it.
Yeah, I did notice that. So, what do you like about that book?
Well, I like that, the moral of the story is very nice, that a horse wants to be free, and a unicorn comes and grants his wish.
Yeah.
And the horse keeps on, doesn't like it. After a few years, the horse doesn't like where he is. But the unicorn knows what he wants. So maybe he should have gone first and he didn't like it, so left it up to the unicorn.
Yeah, maybe. I think that also that the fact that the horse wanted to have so many different things might highlight that, you know, there's so many options for the horse and what the horse could have been. That eventually he chose to be a merry-go-round horse.
Yeah, because you can run around and you can be free. And sometimes when no one's on the ride, you can just stop and rest.
That's true, yeah.
Now, Nadira, what book do you want to read?
I would say I want to read this book.
Macbeth by Shakespeare.
Yeah. So because obviously this book is very, very long, we'll only be reading a few pages. So this is Act 1, Scene 1, and it's about some witches.
Witches? Oh, witches. They're very...
So this is actually a script, so it's not actually like I guess a story in the sense that you can see what they're doing. They're mainly talking.
Okay.
So, when shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain, when the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won? That will be the set of sun. Where the place, upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. I come, grey Malkin, padlocks cool, anon, fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air.
Oh,
And that's the first act.
that's a lot of
And
rhyming.
Scene 1, yeah.
And different words.
It is. Actually, all of the scenes where there's the witches in this book, they rhyme.
Oh,
And
maybe because witches are like in a different kind of mood in them.
yeah, so they're meant to be quite strange and weird.
Different.
Yeah, different to what the rest of the people are in this book.
Yeah, because sometimes people can't rhyme because they can't figure out the words.
That's true. It's also meant to show how all the witches, there's 3 of them, they're all in tune with one another, they're sisters. And they're obviously supernatural. Most people don't like witches, and it's encouraged to think of them as like really weird, nasty people, you know?
Some witches are nice, and sometimes they grant wishes, like the unicorn did.
Yeah, like in the unicorn book, that was a very nice witch, or you could say it's like like a godmother in some sense, you know, like in Cinderella or something.
Sometimes, yeah.
Where they grant wishes, but actually in this book, Macbeth, the witches are horrible people, and what they do is they tell prophecies. So remember in the section of the book, he was saying
things that won't come true.
Yeah, so they were saying that they're going to meet Macbeth again. Tricks, that's the thing. So actually in Macbeth, the story of Macbeth is about these witches, these 3 witches telling Macbeth that he's going to become king. And then he wants to become king, and so decides to...
His wife tells him to become king.
That's true, Lady Macbeth, his wife does tell him to become king, and eventually he does kill the king and takes his place. But obviously this book deals with a lot of themes of guilt and power as well, because obviously he wants to take the place of the king.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. This is a very, very intense book. It has a lot of murder.
Okay. There's also another book that was written by Shakespeare, like I said in the first part, before the break. My favorite book was The Twelfth Night.
So what's The Twelfth Night about, Tasbi?
So there's twins. The twins went on a boat.
Do you remember the twins' names?
Sebastian and... Oh, Nadira, how about you say that?
I think the last one, her name was Viola?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So, like I said, they went on a boat and the boat sank and the twins were separated, sadly. And then Viola thought her brother was dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
From the shipwreck.
Yeah, so she put on her brother's clothes and pretended to be her brother, but
no, I think she pretended to be another boy.
Yeah, but pretended to be her brother with a different name. And she tied up her hair and put
a moustache on.
Yeah, and her brother's clothes. That's the first part of the story, and there's like a love triangle. Some love other people, and then they realize
it's a very complicated love story. So Tasbi, you have a piece of writing there. Would you like to read it to the audience?
Yes. Towering on a cliff, the Iron Man stared at the mysterious sea. The wind swayed him to the right, then to the left. The Iron Man was as tall as a skyscraper and as colossal as a woolly mammoth. Where had he come from? It is a mystery. How far had he walked? It is a mystery. Why did he come? It is a mystery. He lifted his giant foot, which was as large as a double-decker bus. From ledge to ledge, the Iron Man went tumbling down the cliff. From shingle to shingle, the Iron Man crashed into metal pieces of his body. Suddenly, there was nothing but silence.
Wow, that was a really good story.
Thank you. I wrote it myself from a piece of writing.
Oh, I hope the audience can also get inspired from your work to write their own stories or poems.
I get inspired from someone, and the audience can get inspired from someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And then someone gets inspired from the audience.
Yeah.
And it keeps on carrying on. It'd be so fun.
But I really like your story. It's really
Thank
nice.
you. I used some techniques like questions with repeated answers, and like lots of like ledge to ledge, shingle to shingle.
Yeah, that's a good way for the audience to potentially write. You know, I guess that's a writing technique.
Yeah, that's a technique of writing, and that could make your writing better. Or if it's already good, then much more better.
That's actually another thing that the audience could potentially do, and what you also did is include lots of different vocabulary. You did repeat a few things, but that's obviously for a writing technique, right?
Yeah.
You did that purposefully. But also you included lots of different words.
I could have said like, it is a mystery, no one knows.
Yeah. So I
Only he
honestly, that's a very good writing piece.
Thank you. Do you want to like change anything that I said or no?
I think that you did really well. Maybe if potentially in the future you could write what happens after, you know, can continue and extend.
I want to write a script about it. This is only like a piece of my script.
So that's the thing, like, and with the audience as well. Like, if you ever want to write, you always need to have something to base it off, and that's your base, isn't it? It's that's the foundation, and then you'll build on that.
That's my starter.
Yeah, your starting point.
Yeah. Or when you eat food, you starter, and then you carry on. Yeah. So starters, they're really good. So then you know how you're going to carry on and how you're going to carry on and how you're going to make your story and what's it about. So in my story, there's an Iron Man who falls off a cliff, and then there's I'm thinking of my next part. Maybe some animals come.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, some animals come find his scattered pieces on the beach and try to build him again.
Yeah, maybe. That sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah.
So that's obviously your idea. You can have multiple ideas and then potentially pick the best ones. You know, I think it's important to explore before you continue writing. You know, to make sure that you cover everything.
Yeah, and then that perfect, completely perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make a checklist that you have everything that you need. That's what I did.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah. So that's actually all we have for this segment of the show. So the next part is going to be with the guest, and I hope you come back after the break.
Bye!
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the third segment of this show. So, like normal, we'll be interviewing a guest. So, the guest now her name is Uno Baker, and can you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Uno Baker and I'm a third-year journalism student, and I'm a writer as well. I've been writing for so many years and I'm so happy to be here.
That's great.
Okay, so we're going to be asking you some questions. And what are some of your hobbies?
My hobbies include, I love reading, of course I love writing, but in my spare time I really like knitting and sewing and like arts and crafts and things
wow.
like that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really fun.
I like reading and writing as well.
Yeah.
That's
What's
great.
one of your favorite books?
My favourite books, oh gosh, I really like, at the moment I'm reading a book called The Host, which is a really good book, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's about the human conscious mind, like the consciousness, so I think that's one of them.
Okay, how are you handling lockdown?
Well, I'm still currently working. I actually teach, and I teach kids, so I am currently working every day in the afternoons, but other than that, I'm reading, writing, doing my homework. I'm still doing my journalism degree. It's my final year.
Wow.
So I'm just trying to keep myself busy, and yeah, that's it.
Wow, you sound like a very busy person. Do you have any tips potentially for our listeners about how to stay productive, how to be motivated? Obviously, you're doing quite a lot.
Well, to be honest, you have to have off days, and I do have off days. Some of those days where you feel like you just can't do anything, listen to your mind and your body, just go really slow. But my main tip is, sometimes if you don't feel like being busy, literally imagine that all you have is that day. Just take 1 hour at a time, and honestly, time goes so much nicer and you don't feel as anxious and cooped up. So just live in the moment.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Tasbih?
No, and how about we start our interview questions?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we've just heard from Uno that she is an amazing writer, and she's studying her journalism degree, so she obviously likes writing a lot. So here's a question. Why do you enjoy writing?
I think that the world is filled with so many people, and it's so important for us to share a piece of ourselves, just in case that piece helps someone else. And I just feel like my life feels so much more, I understand things much more when I've written it out. It's kind of like it started from me having a journal, and anytime I had a journal and I wrote in it, it felt like I was speaking to myself and having a bond with myself. So I think it stemmed from that, really being able to have a nice conversation with myself and make sense of this weird world.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, for me, I also like writing diaries and journals. I feel like, I feel like, especially some of the diaries and journals that I wrote when I was really young, like maybe your age, when I look back at them and I feel like, oh wow, that's what my 8-year-old self used to think.
Who is your favorite author?
Oh gosh, I have so many. There's an author she's Lithuanian. Her name is Ruta Stepatis. I really love her work. I like historical fiction, and I'm not sure who my favourite historical fiction writer is. There are too many of them, but Ruta Stepatis is definitely one of them. Her writing is great.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of the audience may potentially love reading, or may want to start writing a poem or a story. Do you have any tips for writing stories or poems?
Just try and make sure so a lot of people who want to start writing, they think, oh, what if someone else has already written it? Now that might be true, but you haven't written it, and that's what makes your writing and your work unique. So whatever idea you have about a story or a poem, even if it's like about an apple, just start writing and see where your words take you, because they always surprise you.
Okay. What is the reason you wrote a poem?
So today, the poem I'm going to read today, if you're asking about that specific one, I wrote this about 6 years ago. And the reason I wrote it was because I was in school and my principal was leaving, and I really liked my principal. And we all had planned a surprise party for her, and I said I would do spoken word. It's my first time ever. So this is the first poem I ever recited on stage, and I just thought it was really special, and it's so relevant to today. So yeah.
Would you mind reading your poem for us?
Of course. Okay, so I've got it here. I'm reading it from my pad. So it starts with, once upon a time, as fairy tales start, we began our stories, we began to follow our hearts. We'd go on adventures and we'd go through stages, we'd write everything down, filling up our pages. Then one unexpected day, time knocks on our door. It mysteriously whispers, things won't be like this anymore. None of us could understand why this change had to come, and all of us would question, was it something we had done? It could be a change of country, it could be a change of heart, maybe a change of people, but does it really have to hurt? Is the feeling a bad thing, or perhaps it's a test? And what about the other feelings? Could you identify the rest? Stop. No more questions, because where will they lead? You're thinking way too far ahead. There's simply no need. A wise person once told me, how are you to move on? If you keep rereading the chapters, you'll have let the devil won. Continue your story and don't stop writing, and whatever the obstacles, never stop fighting. That's it.
That's a really good poem. Did you like that?
Yeah, I liked all the rhyming in different questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How long did it take you to write that poem?
I think I wrote it overnight, and I have the date here. It was the 7th of December 2015.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so it didn't take me long. I just kind of was like, I want it to be inspirational, and that's what I mean for those who want to start writing. I wasn't sure what I was going to come up with, and it just came, so you have to just start.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So, Tasfi, I know that you also like writing. Do you feel the same way in the sense that, like, is it like when you first start writing, is it difficult, and then you just need to trust the fact that you'll keep going?
Yeah, you need to trust the fact that you'll do well and you'll make a nice poems.
Yeah, because I think with a lot of people, they might be scared of writing poems or writing books and things like that because of the fact that the first draft, you need to understand that the first draft is never going to be the best one. That you'll have multiple edits and things like that. Have you ever needed to edit a lot of your work?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started writing, I used to just kind of put it in my diary, so I never really used to tweak it. But now I have my own website, and I post my poetry on my Instagram, which is Adjust Your Angle. That's my brand name. I post everything on there. I am a very firm believer of put your draft out there, your first draft, because your first draft is the most original, and you can tweak it if you want. But I don't often tweak my writing. I'm kind of like, I want it to be as authentic as possible. I let it just flow, and then I release it. So yeah, I don't really tweak my writing that much.
Oh, okay. I tweak my writing a little bit because I want to make it really good.
I think it's also important to get advice from other people. Maybe make some of your friends or family read your work and see what they think to help you as well, or maybe your teacher.
I do that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
See if they like it.
So, Tasveer, do you want to start the quiz?
Yeah, it's our quiz time.
Yeah.
Okay. The first question.
Before we begin, I'd just like to say to that we're going to be asking you multiple choice questions, and they're all about authors and books.
Oh gosh, I'm awful.
When was Shakespeare born? Option 1, 1498. Option 2, 1564. Option 3, 1682.
I'd say the first option.
The first option is 1498.
I think it's that one.
No, it's actually 1564.
Yeah.
I was gonna go for the middle one. I'm so bad with facts, but keep going.
Yeah, dates are actually really hard to remember. But I never remember the exact date that Shakespeare was born, but I do remember his birthday. It's the 23rd of April. That's actually 2 days before mine. And I know that's actually 2 days.
25th of
Yeah.
April, which is crazy.
That's funny.
That's crazy.
So the next question is, what is the shortest play Shakespeare ever wrote? The first option is Comedy of Error, the second is Macbeth, and the third is Twelfth Night.
Okay, it's definitely not Macbeth, and it's definitely not Twelfth Night, because they are long. It must be the first one.
Yeah, it is. Good job.
Okay. So the next one is, which author wrote Huckleberry Finn? Option 1, Mark Twain. Option 2, Charles Dickens. Option 3, Henry Miller.
Okay, I don't think it's Charles Dickens. I think it's Mark Twain.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
that's right. So, for the audience who don't know that book, it was actually about a little boy called Finn who was a black slave, and that book is actually quite controversial. A lot of current writers and critics are suggesting that the language used in the book is inappropriate because they were trying to reflect the language used at the time, but obviously we feel like that is quite offensive, some of the language in that book. So there are quite a few books that have the original version and also this new, more censored version.
Okay, so which of the following authors is famous for short horror stories? Option 1, Edgar Allan Poe. Option 2, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Option 3, George Orwell.
Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe, I know he's very famous for his writing and he's got quite a gothic theme. But Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, that's tricky. I'm gonna go for Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's right.
So you are right in the sense that he writes a lot of gothic stories, but I guess gothic and horror potentially they are, I guess, fairly similar.
Yeah.
So another thing about those three options is that for all the audience that doesn't know, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was actually the person who wrote Sherlock Holmes. So that's a good way to remember that he
But
wasn't
some
a
of
horror
Sherlock
writer.
Holmes's pieces were quite scary. I don't know if you've read all of them, but they've got like a tweak to them, so it's kind of tricky.
So the next question is, which of the following writers wrote poems in the Romantic era? The first is Lord Byron, the second is George Mitton, and the third is John Donne.
It's 100% Lord Byron.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, the Romantic era was within the late 18th century and the early 19th century. So the other two options that I said on the list were not born in that time period. So that's, I guess, one way to remember.
Okay, so what is the name of the Roald Dahl childhood biography? Option 1, Stories of Childhood. Option 2, Boy Tales of Childhood. Option 3, Little Tales of a Little Boy.
I think it's 2, Boyhood.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Have you ever read that book?
No, but I remember reading a lot of Roald Dahl's work when I was a child, and the second option was one on my mother's shelf, and she kept saying I was too young to read it. That's why I remember it.
Actually, I also have read quite a few Roald Dahl books. I remember reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, so have I.
What other books have you read that's from Roald Dahl?
Tangled and
James the Giant Peach.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh,
yeah. The BFG as well.
Yeah, and
The
Matilda.
Witches. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of his films, now that I'm thinking about it, were adapted into... No, a lot of his books, sorry, were adapted into films, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember watching the BFG, James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, those
Charlie
ones.
and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, wow, a lot of his stories were actually... Oh my gosh, wow. Do you have... so obviously you said that you have read quite a few Roald Dahl books. For children's books, did you ever read anything growing up? Did you like reading when you were young?
I loved reading. I mean, my memories are from my imagination, not the TV screen. I loved it. I loved reading Enid Blyton's work, Mallory Towers, the classics about the amazing boarding school for girls. I loved reading The Faraway Tree. I loved Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl is amazing. The Witches was my favourite. Yeah, I loved reading so much. I think children really should be encouraged to read it. It stimulates their brains in such an amazing way, and it's just you come up with the characters and the worlds that are put into words on your own. So it's just such an amazing thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So that's all that we have today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode about authors, and we'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye! See you in the next episode.